Good morning. We're
Morning, my friend.
live. I'm so happy to be here with you, Maya.
Me too.
Yay. And you look very Christmassy with your green and red.
It's a fluke. The red cord.
Yeah. So we were just talking about the fact that Maya is receiving a 50 under 50 award from Concordia University. And she's going to go get congratulated by the dean later, which is very exciting. I love to see you celebrated and recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It definitely kind of, it's a pretty special, I don't know, something. Honor?
It is.
Yeah. And it's been nice to have like little reach outs from folks I haven't spoken to in a long time or worked with many years ago who are like, okay, look at you. You're doing okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Maya and I have known each other since 2018 when I was speaking at an event and she heckled me. She love heckled me.
Love heckled.
And
It was a love heckle for sure.
she love heckled me. We hit it off right away. We started having weekly conversations as friends, but also we very quickly started talking about work and jumping into opportunities for collaboration. And anyways, I've seen you through a few iterations. I've seen you through a few jobs and
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
through
that's true.
growth phases. And yeah, it's amazing to see you recognized.
Thank you.
You've made some incredible moves.
Thanks, my friend.
So, for context, for those of you who haven't sat through a caffeinated change with me or recently, forgive me if ever I look back. It's because I got a new cat, and I feel like and I have a second cat. There might be a little bit of like, playfulness or
I
shenanigans.
could also tell you because I've got like the mirror. I can see everything too. Oh,
Oh, yeah, cutie.
oh, there we go.
Oh, oh, riveting,
Stopped in its
riveting
tracks.
TV. No. Okay. Anyways, this is LinkedIn Live, so um, so for context, everyone, Caffeinated Change is a series that Danny and I do as part of New Room's kind of like, let's shoot the shit, talk about what we've been up to, talk about what's going on socially, contextually, riff, explore some of the concepts that are coming up with our work. And more recently, we've decided to do a series of caffeinated changes that are specifically connected to our new ideas program, the SEED. Ideas is inclusion, diversity, equity, access, and social impact. And the SEED is a training program, an immersive online training program that happens. Cohort 1 is taking place January 22nd to February 22nd. So registration is open. And we have invited a few folks who've contributed to the program who will be facilitating the program with us. Maya is one of those facilitators, which I'm really excited about. And during these lives, we're going to be talking about some of the concepts that come up in the SEED and as they connect with these folks' work, their passions. And our concept today, or our core theme, is the notion of rooting and belonging. And in the bio for this live, I wrote a whole plethora of Maya's past experience, but essentially Maya's done work in employee experience, in recruitment, in program development, facilitating and consulting and advising in equity, diversity, and inclusion. Anything else you want to add to that?
Just that you know my profile better than I do. I just want you to introduce me all the time.
So Maya's got, and also the other thing is that Maya's worked at a few of the big names that we would all love to, peek behind the doors of and have a better understanding of how things are working. And I'm not going to be like digging into any of that, Maya. We don't need any specific examples, but
We
in
can if you
today's
want. It's juicy.
in today's session of rooting and belonging, I was
Uh,
hoping that we could kind of bring in some of these concepts of what it actually means to explore belonging in a workplace context, in an environment that fundamentally doesn't allow for a lot of individuality for the
Mm.
most part. And before we get into all of that, we're going to start nice and easy. Just a little opening question. What are some of the seeds that have been planting for you these days that you're excited about? They don't need to be work related. What's percolating?
Honestly, it's that the year is coming to a close, and my partner and I are taking the last 2 weeks off and just like gonna sit in the literal cabin in the woods that we have and make
Yeah.
fires and make meals and drink really good wine.
Oh
And
yeah, Maya's
then
a sommelier as well.
and then I'm looking forward to like, while I'm not someone who believes personally in like New Year's resolutions and things like that, I do tend to see the calendar year as a, a time frame that I work within, and that I'd like a kind of blank slate. 2024, let's
Mm,
get it.
hmm
2023 was a roller coaster, and I'm looking forward to just like a very slow, one of the kids roller coasters at Disney, the Winnie the Pooh one, where like the bumps are like 1 inch. Like it's like, hey,
Where you can eat your popcorn on the ride.
yeah, just give me a children's ride for
Yeah,
like a 3-year-old, not even an 8-year-old. Just can we just do that? And I think that it's possible.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I'm in a role right now at a company that I'm excited to like get things moving. I'm meeting with my boss next week in Burnaby, and we're spending a week together, head down, kind of like what are we doing next year? And I love that. I love that. You and I have done that where we just kind of like brainstorm and spend time like looking forward.
It's the Capricorn in us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Do
so
you
I'm
want
looking
to
forward to that.
do I love this for you, and I feel that energy for you of that, like, you know, softer, more steady year. You've
Mhm.
been putting in all the work to get to this point, you know? Do you wanna say a little something about your current role?
Yeah, sure. I got a title I'm pretty proud of. Uh, Senior Manager, Global Social Purpose, um, at a legal tech company called Clio. And what's nice is all the work is around making, justice accessible for all. The work and the team that I'm on, it's everything kind of related to, we call it DIBE internally, so diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity. Um, there's so many versions of that. Volunteering, giving, so giving of time, giving of money, like donations, giving product, helping lawyers with whether it's pro bono work or like the Innocence Project and stuff like
Mm,
that. And working a lot with ERG, so employee resource groups, and there's an opportunity to do good in multiple ways and have impact. And there are a lot of people internally who want to do good. Um, there is no lack of folks who want to do good at the company, which is really
it's nice to
special.
hear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm happy to hear that. We need our little inklings of hope. We need to believe that there are
Oh, yeah,
other folks doing this work with us, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Um, especially having been in, for you, you've been in DIBE or
yeah.
EDI or DNI, like you've been in these roles for years and years. And I know that in those roles, the responsibility often falls on the shoulders of the person with the title rather than it being a shared sense of responsibility. Um, so it's nice to hear at this new place that there's more. of an urge for people to engage, and the fact that they even have someone with your role.
Yeah. No, it's true. And like a report into a VP social purpose, like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I'm happy for you.
Thanks.
So in our first module of the seed, which is called Cultures of Belonging, we explore the fact and talk about the fact that when we're engaging in um, ideas concepts or EDI concepts, what we're trying to move people towards is the understanding of um, the impact of that work being a sense of belonging, a culture of belonging, and relationships that are centered in belonging. And so in our first module, we're trying to unpack what does belonging actually look like and feel like, so that it doesn't just become a buzzword that we're aiming towards, but something that we're understanding fundamentally and feeling into. So one of the exercises that we do during that first facilitation is about tapping into belonging with all the senses.
Hmm.
And we use a lot of visualization in the facilitated sessions that we do. We use a lot of somatic sort of practices to help people to feel into their body where, um, where the concepts are landing or what might be coming up. So I won't walk you through a full visualization, Maya, but I'd love to hear from you. Um, when you kind of, and you had me do this, or you had all of us do this at a talk that I saw you speak at recently. But if you close your eyes and you think about um, what does belonging look like, smell like, feel like, taste like? If you're going to experience belonging with all the senses, what comes up for you?
Hmm. Ease, warmth. I'm thinking about the bees. I'm obsessed with bees. So now I'm thinking about the bees. So I don't know. That's like a nice feeling. Maybe it's the hive or the rhythm, the buzzing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so into the bees. And this right now in this moment. um, your favorite dessert, like just good things.
Hmm.
Um, but ease and comfort are key. Like, hey, feeling good, warm blanket, just gonna be myself. Um, yeah,
Hmm. And how does that, when we do this exercise, there are a lot of colors that come up for people. People see a lot of like orange, and
yeah, it's
there's a
orange for
lot
me
of warmth. Um, People smell food that's been prepared by family members. You hear laughter. You hear questions of genuine interest and curiosity. You hear statements of acceptance, music you love,
too. Hmm,
um, uh, jokes, like all of these things that you would associate with like really rich, deeply rooted relationships.
yeah.
And we are trying to bring that sense of deeply rooted relationships to workplaces. And I'm curious for like, how does that translate? How do we start bringing that sense of warmth, um, that orange glow of feeling that sense of ease? How do we actually bring that to organizations? Secondary question, is it a pipe dream? Um,
Hmm.
and concretely, what does it look like?
Is it a pipe dream? I have close friends who no matter like they tell me I don't need a sense of belonging at work. I'm there to work. I don't need it. I don't expect it. It's not that they don't care, but they don't believe that it'll ever happen. So they just kind of accept I'm here for my 9 to 5. I'm not making friends, and that's okay. And it's not even necessarily my friends who are part of like the Black community or the LGBTQ community. I have a number of just of white friends who feel that way. I'm making the the separation or calling out the community they're a part of on purpose, just because I know a lot of the times we think like maybe it's more difficult for certain groups, and it is. I think it often is, but it's interesting when I hear like a range of friends say belonging. Like, okay, like why do I need that? Um, why I when I do like sessions around belonging or psychological safety, like to me they're very well, they're totally connected.
Hmm.
Um,
Say more about that.
I don't think you can feel you belong if you don't have psychological safety. Psychological safety, feeling like I can say something, ask a question, fail,
Hmm.
all things without risk of harm, uh, embarrassment, you know, all these things. If I have that, then we can probably have the conversation of belonging. But it'd be weird to be like, I'm myself, I belong. But at the same time, your manager makes you feel awful and, regularly or something. I don't see how that can work together.
Specifically awful around like, um,
If you ask a question and it's like, well,
yeah,
that's stupid, or
yeah,
hey, you screwed up on that project, or, things
yeah.
like that.
When I heard you speak about this recently, one of the metrics that you're measuring for when you're testing to see if people feel psychologically safe is connected to, can I be honest if I've made a mistake? Can I be honest if I feel like I don't have, um, I don't have all the information that I need in order to do my work effectively? Essentially, like, yeah, can I be honest?
And you'd think that that's like all baseline. Can I be honest? Like, I would like to think that that's how I'm going to lead
Right.
everything. I mean, I tend to lead with, hear me out. I tend to lead with belonging slash, um, I tend to lead with the assumption of belonging. It's been interesting over the last few years, and you know this in terms of the roles or teams I've been on, when it's worked, when it hasn't worked. And I remember once I was crying in frustration during a meeting
Mm.
because we weren't getting the help that we needed. And I was just crying in frustration. I wasn't saying anything. It was just quite literally that. And I remember being told after, hey, obviously, you can, share how you feel and everything, but it made a couple people really uncomfortable. And I remember starting to laugh. I'm like, it made people uncomfortable that I was being myself and crying during a team meeting. And they were like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I said, I know who was uncomfortable because you can kind of gauge. Some people just are not. It's so funny because I don't like cry during meetings. Like that was like probably the second time in my life. Like it was, but also who cares? Like it wasn't about anybody in the meeting. Yeah, I didn't see it as a big deal at all, and I'm smiling because it's still funny to me. And I told my manager, I go, I say this with love, but I need you to know that I knowingly, it's not like I planned to cry, but I also could have turned off the camera. I could have, muted and none of you would have known, but I purposely did it to see if I belong on this team. and you've now proven to me that I do not belong on this team. So I'm going to be looking for another team. Like, it was very natural and fine, and that leader was like, "Wow, I've never worked with anyone like you." Uh, she wasn't mad or anything. She's just like, "I really didn't expect it to go this way." I'm like, "I know, and that's okay, but, like, I'm starting with the belonging, and you all can show me if I do or not, and you show me that I don't, and that's okay. At least we've, instead of rooting and belonging, we've rooted out that I don't belong on this team, and that's okay." And I ended up leaving, like, looking and changing teams pretty shortly after. Um, what's my point? That I know not everyone will start with the belonging. It's pretty weird and maybe rare. For me, it's what works. So I show up, and then the next company I worked with after that, I showed up full Maya again. And I remember one colleague, we had a good talk. They were kind of like, "Yeah, I feel like you're being a little too familiar with me." And I'm like, "Hey, that's good feedback. That's good feedback. I really like you and I really respect you, so I led with that, but it sounds like maybe that doesn't work for you. And I respect you telling me in a way that is thoughtful." And so that brand of Maya, which is just full Maya, wasn't for them. So I pulled it back because that's okay too. But I was also like, okay, I can't really be full Maya on this team either.
Hmm.
But the difference was I wasn't that was what was the difference? I think the difference was in the first example, I to this day fundamentally feel like it was wrong to give me that feedback around, like, don't cry, like, that's obscene. And then in the second situation, I think it's really okay that for that person, for their psychological safety and their comfort, they acquired X from me and they said it to me directly.
Well,
And so that
they
was
felt safe enough to tell you.
exactly. And so I really appreciated that. And while it's kind of like, when we talk about microaggressions and stuff like that, and people get defensive, like, wait, I didn't mean that. And it's like, I had that moment of defensiveness, but I was able to be like, okay, pretend you're training someone, take it, take the information. I apologized. I said, if it's okay, I'd like to tell you what my intention was, even though I know that the impact is what matters. But um, yeah, anyway, listen, to get back to how do you bring that into corporate? Because it's not everyone who's going to show up like, hey, this is who I am. We're all observing and figuring out who we can be ourselves with, what situations we can be ourselves with. There are politics at play all the time with work. So you can be yourself maybe on this team, but with that team, you need to be a little bit more refined or whatever word you want to use. It's still good to like observe. You have to protect your paycheck and you have to protect your peace. I am in a place where I can do this, where I can lead with this is the this is how I want to be able to be.
Yeah.
Am I accepted like this? And if I am, great. And if I'm not, I feel confident that I can move and find it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think it is, probably not the norm that people feel like, as that woman said to you, I've never seen anyone like test belonging in that way, like I think for the most part people are not leaning in with, I'm going to assume I belong here. I think for the most part people are waiting for invitations. And I know it was a convoluted question that I first asked about, like, is it a pipe dream? How does it happen in corporate? And you started by saying you have friends who, don't believe in the notion of belonging. And yet, you work in belonging. You encourage people to develop skills of psychological safety, of nurturing psychological safety for others. You lean in with the fundamental belief that this is a place you can belong in. You want to set the tone in that way, you know? Um, so you believe in the importance of this. Why is it important for organizations right now to be digging into the nuance of belonging, regardless of how complicated it is?
Yeah. So, we have the, I don't know, 8.7 thousand pages of Google search results when you look up, why is diversity good for business? Because people are still asking that question. It creates room for more innovation, creativity, higher productivity, more monies. That's the bringing in of the different folks. That's the diversity part. Now, it just feels like a basic calculation, like a basic math example. If we can bring in all these different people, backgrounds, experiences, and they foster all this goodness, imagine if they feel good too. Like it just seems so basic to me. Imagine if those same people feel like they can throw out wild ideas that have never been heard of, or have never been heard of in this country, or have never been heard of in this language.
Mm,
Um, and then if the receiver, the listener, says, huh, all right, let's give it a shot. And it's no big deal if it doesn't work. Again, I'm talking about intelligent risk. What a wild idea, you know? Um, and so you have people providing more input, giving more strange or unique ideas because they know that they're not going to be shunned, embarrassed, all this stuff. Like it just seems so. It seems logical to me
yeah.
that it's needed. Now, one problem or one fact that happens is a lot of leaders, a lot of managers aren't taught or educated around how to manage, just period. A lot of the times it's like, hey, I've been at the company so long, and yeah, you've been at the company so long. We need to promote you because that's how it works. That's how you get, I don't know, more money or whatever. And it's like, yeah, no, not everybody needs to manage humans. Most people shouldn't be managing humans. I've had I feel confident saying some of the best managers probably in the world. And I've also had some of the absolute worst managers who call themselves leaders and who cause harm. And luckily, I am strong enough, know myself enough, and confident enough to navigate that and say bye.
Yeah.
But I have colleagues, ex colleagues, friends who have had to stay in the situation.
Speak to us about.
Yeah, I'm like in it. I'm in it in terms of I'm not cutting you off. I'm just kind of thinking like it's the manager, like getting to the belonging pieces. I'm a new manager. I'm a good person, but I don't know what I'm doing. because no one's telling me how to do it. How do you lead with wanting the team to belong? They don't know.
And
But
what
I
do you
think
think?
I guess that's where when we're talking about that corporate piece, if I'm a good, because at the end of the day, I'd like to think 99% of us at work are good, care about our colleagues, don't want to cause harm, and don't want to find out that they've hurt someone. Like, that's probably the average person, I think. I'd like to think.
Hmm.
But if I work at an organization where, I'm just like, I work at an organization where uh, ruthlessness is honored, or it's the dollar. Yeah, you cut the budget in such a great way, and you're we're celebrating negative either behaviors or negative leadership styles or processes. A very good human who's a new manager will be like, okay, my natural way would be to just, hey team, tell me your ideas, it's okay. But I keep seeing that on all the other teams, bad ideas get reprimanded because, oh, you cost us, da, da, da. It's going to be hard for me as the new leader to be like watering my little plant employees. So to your question around like corporate and why it's important and bringing it in, it's kind of an everywhere thing. Every organization is going to have a few amazing managers. Like, it's just like, obviously. But if for the most part there's like a toxic something, it sneaks in everywhere, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
It's,
yeah,
do you think it's true also in the opposite side? Hello. Hello, sir.
it literally sounds like, hello, hello.
Do you think it's true on the opposite side of the spectrum? So, there are some good, do you want to come up? There are good managers who are making an effort. And then if they're in an environment where there are kind of more toxic traits, or where values that benefit profit um, are prioritized, that kind of like seeps into everything and impacts all of those positive management efforts. Do you think it's true on the other end of the spectrum where the positive efforts of managers who are strongly attempting to nurture environments of belonging, that those can seep and become positively insidious?
I want a t-shirt that says positively insidious. Yeah, I do. But the thing, the sad thing, there needs to be some solidarity on that positive insidiousness. Because when you're the only good, the only little like good little worker bee, the positive one, and you just keep seeing all it becomes hard. The folks who are going on burnout, who are going on sick leave, I have been that person before. A lot of the time it's you are really trying to continue to put out the good, put good in, the positive, and you're either not getting it back or you're watching the negative all over, and then it like takes its toll. So those folks end up burning out. They're doing double the work and they're exhausting themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by solidarity. That's why we need more than just the one positively insidious. Because I've been in roles where it's like, okay, I can stay and really try to like make the change. Am I in a position to make the change? You remember when I was working somewhere where, I asked the head of brand, I asked the head of comms, the president, hey, what are we gonna do about, you know, the murder of George Floyd and now all the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, and being told, and I was in a role where it was a global employer brand role. I'm trying to hire Black people into the organization and being told, well, we don't want to make a political stance. And I really tried, and I talked to so many people, and everyone I spoke to agreed with me, and that was even more frustrating. I wasn't coming up against folks who are like, come on, Maya, like, everyone agreed with me, but in their role of power, were choosing not to fight with me. And if the five of us, the heads of all these things, were kind of like, can we just agree that we should do something and just tell this, whether it's a board or whatever. But no, it did. It came down to that money thing again. I still can't explain why it did. Like, I don't know. Like, how is that? Anyway, it was probably seen as disruptive or something, even though at that point the whole world was kind of trying to send a message. I've had some experiences, eh?
You have.
But,
Yeah. I'm hearing some themes of so the first kind of theme that I hear, and I know it's not this simplistic, but the first theme that I hear is an easy entry for people to feel like they belong is people need room to make mistakes, to be human, to be able to fail, to try new things out, to be able to say, "Hey, what about this? We haven't really thought about this." Or, "I don't really have enough information in order to execute on that. I'm confused here." This is kind of like an easy entry into the how. Another theme that I'm hearing is around the why. Why would we invest in belonging and really take the time and energy to train people in building these strong relationships when these relationships are so nuanced because humans are complicated? And the theme around why is the power of the ideas and the potential creativity. The other theme that I'm hearing from you is the who is involved here. The role of managers being a really fundamental one, not just in managing quote unquote down, but also in aligning and managing up so that people feel a sense of community and connectedness in these efforts. This is like, my hope. My hope with New Room and my hope with all the work that we do is that we are going to help organizations to take active steps in this direction. And why do I want to do this? Because I've experienced the opposite side of all of that. And I think a lot of people have, and a lot of people are motivated to engage in equity, diversity, inclusion work, equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, or DIBE, or because they've experienced the opposite. And yet I couldn't find an organization in which I could really feel like I belonged. And that meant like a drain of my creativity and a real loss of my potential. And so ultimately I ended up starting my own businesses in order to find it.
Yeah.
And also really investing heavily in relationships of collaboration where I felt like I can do meaningful work outside of the umbrella of a corporate environment, working with people like you and ultimately building my network with people who really believe in all of these concepts, who believe in not being perfect, being able to make mistakes, who believe in doing it together, who believe in asking questions and challenging, who believe in the importance of finding new ways and finding new solutions, and who are taking steps down this road, like really humbly and bumbly, we're all
Mm,
kind of like figuring it out as we go.
yeah.
So, have you experienced environments that really allow you to fail, to ask questions, to come up with new ideas? Like, you said you've had some of the best managers in the world.
The
Uh,
world, I tell you.
yeah. What were those experiences like?
Well, you touched on something, and I want to say that it's not up to just my manager to make me feel like I belong. That's where, because there's the team aspect, top down, you know, what are the senior leaders doing? Am I also able to get it? We need to try to get what we need outside of the one-to-one relationship, probably with our manager. So if more of us are aiming for that, then we'll have more of that kind of connected tissue from different levels and different teams and across departments and functions. Some of the best managers I had were while I was at some of the worst organizations I worked at.
Hmm.
So it allowed me to maybe stay longer. It allowed me to feel safe within the scope of the work I was doing. But ultimately, I've realized I'm 42, um, and only recently am I kind of like, okay, I need to be connected to my employer's brand and what they're putting out.
Hmm.
It's not just the role I have, because I've had pretty cool roles. I've had some really fun work opportunities where I love my team, I love my manager, the role is great, but then there's like a strong disconnect with the values of the organization. I'll rephrase, every organization has cool values on their website. What I know to be true of how they are actually representing their true values internally is where there would be a disconnect. I'm gonna work somewhere where the value on the website is like to cause harm, but yet they're doing that. So what was I getting at, Aaron? What was
Good environments, best managers, worst environments, organizations that are vocal about their values.
yeah, the
I know
values
now
thing is a
you also
weird
are
one.
talking about the notion of feeling like you want to actually be connected to the brand and impact of the org.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I knew, basically when I was born, I would never work for a cigarette company or something like that. There's like those easy ones, but I also ended up working for a mining and minerals company. I worked at this little company called Amazon, stuff like that. Whereas now I'm just like, but it was also like amazing manager, great team. We're doing good in our little cubby,
Yeah.
but yeah, for me, it wasn't enough. So
Mhm. I know with this role that you're in now, like one of the things that drew you to them was a statement that they made, I mean, among other things, but I know they made a statement on their website of striving to be an anti-racist organization.
good memory, Aaron. I told you that in May.
But the thing is, it stuck with me because of the word striving, because I really appreciate,
Mm,
I think it says a lot when an organization is like, we are working towards this thing, because I think traditionally, when it comes to branding, when it comes to those core values and, all these statements that are being made by organizations in order to attract talent, they're making these grand statements about
mm,
who they are
yeah.
rather than being honest about where they are along the journey.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of room in that word striving for learning as you go, for making mistakes along the way, for acknowledging that you don't have all the answers.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if an organization is making that public stance and saying, we don't have all the answers, fundamentally the tone is set for the employees to not have all the answers.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah, when I would do, consulting with organizations who are like, "We need help with our, with our website, with this," and I'm like, "Do you have, like, a DEI statement?" "Well, we're not there." I'm like, "But do you believe in it? We know it's okay." Nobody's like, "We've done it. We're perfect." But if you can put something on your website that says you're striving to mm, it's making yourselves accountable for a later look back. "Hey, how are we doing on that journey?" Um, but a lot of the times, like, "Well, we don't wanna put anything until we've done something." I'm like, "But then what if you never do anything and then it's just never on your website?" People give a shit about this stuff now, by the way. They're gonna look it up, especially, like, certain groups of folks and generations and communities wanna see, "What are you doing?" Um,
Yeah. More and more, obviously, like because, but just in the last 5 years that we've known each other, like what a shift we've experienced in our domains.
yeah,
And
thankfully.
thankfully, thankfully, my gosh.
Mm, mm,
Um, and I feel like there's a lot of different dots connecting for organizations where they recognize like corporate social responsibility is what's ESG?
environment, sustainability, or no,
Yes.
social and governance, yeah.
Yeah. CSR is ESG, is employee experience, is our efforts in equity, diversity, inclusion, is our social impact, is the purpose of this organization. Like there are a lot of siloed efforts that are connecting, and people are feels as though in the last 5 years organizations are just recognizing um, the necessity of really connecting all of their um, efforts towards good,
Mm,
and having that be fundamentally interrelated in the way that they build their workplace environment and nurture it, which I'm so glad to see. And it brings up for me this, I'm not going to have the direct quote, but in the seed we use the work of Dr. John Powell, who I've mentioned a couple of times on these lives, but um, Dr. John Powell is um, I, I wish Danny was here for this. The founder, not the founder, a very important person in Berkeley Institute of Belonging and Othering.
I'm looking at his name here on the left, yeah.
Specifically, what I'm curious about is what is his role at Berkeley Institute. I know he's the big name, but
Professor of Law, African American Studies and Ethnic Studies, and he's the Chancellor's Chair in Equity and Inclusion. Does that sound right?
yes. So Dr. John Powell, who's done a bunch of research on the notion of belonging and how belonging is co-created, talks about 4 practices and 4 ways that belonging is co-created,
Oh, I
being
love his face. He has a good face.
um, he talks about 4 practices, 4 pillars of belonging: agency, power, care, love, and respect, and a shared sense of responsibility. And he talks about the fact that if we institutionalize belonging,
Hmm,
that institutionalizing belonging is directly tied to collective liberation. And that gives me shivers to think about, just like the significance and the potential impact and importance of creating environments where people feel that they have a sense of agency and that they're loved and respected, and what holistically and societally that could mean. And the reason I'm bringing this up and what I'm connecting this to is, you said I'm 42 and I'm now realizing like the brand of the organization that I work for is really important. I think a lot of people are having that conscious recognition kind of wake up around, it's not just that the organization that I work for, has a positive mission in the way that we work, in the way that we communicate, in the way that we engage each other internally and also engage stakeholders externally, and think about the relationships that we're a part of with the environment, with the community, etc. We are actively working towards doing something good, like
Mm.
building better environments, building
Mhm.
better relationships. And yeah, for me and for Dr. John Powell and for you, I know actively engaging and creating that sense of belonging in the day to day is about striving for a better world. It's that, God, that sounds so cheesy.
I love cheese so much, so it's fine. But it's true. It's making me think of like, okay, I can add to your cheese. I'll one up you on the mozzarella. Legacy. I feel, and I know there's, I joke about this with you, with friends around that, the confidence teetering into arrogance or what have you. I'd like to think I do a good job on the staying on the confidence side, but thinking about like legacy and you join a team, a project, a company, an anything, and you hear names of people and you can tell if they were liked or not. You can tell if they brought good into what they did. I will continue to just try to bring good, make people feel good because it makes me feel good. And I think, I can only base it on the way folks have been reaching out. Recently you mentioned the Concordia, the top 50 thing, like the way people are reaching out directly and what they're saying. I feel good about how I've left places. And it's some of those places that I told you where it was pretty bad. I didn't I wasn't causing any harm that I know of. I feel pretty good about that. And, when we talk about the bad, I'm going to say bad leaders for lack of the maybe not thoughtful folks, people remember that stuff and carry it forever. Like to this day, I will remember the name and the face and the sound of the voice of like one of my first awful managers who was unkind and threatening, and by today's standards it was absolutely psychological harassment, but I
Mhm.
was like, I didn't know that. um and I remember that from over 15 years ago. um Whereas I'd like to think that the folks who worked with me have fond memories, know that I tried to make them feel good. Why not try for that? Why not be known for that?
Yeah. You said it early on, and I know you have a hard stop at 10, so I'll round this all out.
It's also good to see Rox
Yeah.
commenting that she loves cheese. Like that's how I want to end this. Thank you. So good.
I think you said early on in this conversation that managers, don't have the skills, or, are not sure how to manage through these um, social times. And I'm like social
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
under which falls so much, including the fact that like the workforce is changing, that people want different things from their work, including the fact that socially we're going through just like, I mean,
Yeah. It's harder to be a leader today than it was 20 years ago.
yeah. And so you mentioned that people are kind of like grappling with what the skills are that they need. And what I continue to come back to around that is the fact that building an environment that's centered in belonging actually does have practices that are associated with it. And those practices really are about becoming better relationship builders,
Mhm,
becoming better listeners,
mhm,
up with more heart. And I think for those folks who are curious or willing to stretch some muscles in that area, there are ways for them to develop those skills. And I fundamentally believe in the potential ripple effects, positive effects of people who really do show up in that way. In the same way, like this is why you're being celebrated with your 50 under 50, because
mhm,
you've ripple affected.
mhm.
Um, so I know we've talked about so many different things in this conversation. Belonging is obviously a rich and very human topic that brings up so much for all of us, challenging past experiences, emotional memories, um, and also that sense of warmth and that orange glow. Um, and I want to say that I do believe in our efforts towards building environments of belonging. I don't believe that belonging is a pipe dream in organizations. And I'm really excited about continuing to walk this journey that we're walking together, Maya, of like learning as we go
Mm.
and developing those skills and helping other people walk this as well. Um, yeah, this is a really rich learning relationship for me. And I love you and I appreciate you.
I love you too. I enjoyed this chat. It's funny how time just goes by. All we were missing was it being the evening and wine, but that's okay. I can sometimes do morning sessions.
We needed wine to go with that cheese. I love you. Um, I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk
Or
to you
I'll
soon.
I'll end our stream and then we'll say a quick goodbye. Thank you to people who listened into this. Reach out if you want information about the seed. The email or the website is right there, jointheseed.online. Find out more about Maya, click on her profile. Maya loves to chat, I'm sure. And we'll see you next week for another caffeinated change.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, our live has ended.